song. Just because I have it in my... Yeah, there, my headphones on. Yeah, happy. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Stepsbasic, and welcome back to Let's Play. Really? Let's Play? No. Welcome back to my community show. Alright, so we have done it. We have completed A Plague Tale. But first, before we get into my final thoughts on that, let's talk about announcements. Things have been moving along quite nicely with The Plague Tale, and completed it this week. That was awesome. And now we're going to be focusing solely on The Last of Us Part 2. And this coming week, we will be doing our side games again, and that's going to be great. Yeah, don't really have many announcements. Kind of glad things are working out nicely. Yeah, apart from all that, let's get into our topic for today, which is the final thoughts on A Plague Tale Innocence. First of all, I was not being hyperbolic when I said that is the best game I have played all year. And that's including all the little ones. And I would even go so far as to say that was probably the best game I played last year, too. But of course, that's not how it works, because I didn't play it last year, I played it this year. Of course, now, admittedly, I will say that it is just March, and I might play something better. But right now, it is in top place for contender for the winner of my favorite game of the year. But let's focus on everything, shall we? That game, for all of what I expected it to be, which was a stealth-based sort of game, it worked. Everything worked. Now, I mentioned in my video, the last video, I mentioned that I was surprised that when it came to the core mechanics of the game, I was surprised that it was enjoyable, because I have never been much for stealth. I like it, but I'm not good at it, sort of thing. So I always get caught. But this game didn't feel overwhelming in the fact that if you get caught, you're dead. Now, naturally, if you get caught, you're dead. Because there's just no way around it. I mean, sure, you can sling some people's heads off, but that's not really the point of the game. And the other aspect of the game is the escort portion of it, which means that you have an NPC in tow at all times, most of the time. A couple of times it wasn't, but for the most part, if you're playing the game, you got an NPC in tow. So it was technically a stealth-based escort quest, which on the surface sounds like a horrible game. But overall, everything worked really well together. I mean, first of all, for the most part, with the exception of a couple places, the checkpoints were so very nice, so epic, and it's like you died, you start over from your checkpoint, and it's all gravy. The Hugo portion was quite possibly the most annoying part, but I still made it through fairly effectively. Now, that's saying a lot, considering how bad I am at stealth sometimes. But, made it to the end of it, and had a lot of fun. Where was it going? Oh yeah, the checkpoints were really nice. There were occasions when I did get caught and was able to get away, which was nice, because if you use the cover in the system, the cover system in the game, then it makes it significantly easier. You're very, very likely to be able to get away, because unless they see you hide in the grass before you get there, then and of course, if you don't move, if you hide in the grass in the same place that you disappeared into it, then they're going to find you. But if you run into the grass, hide well, keep moving, then chances are you can get away from getting caught. Of course, there is also the additional, you can kill the guards and whatnot. And the combat, I'd say, was probably the weakest part of the game, but considering the type of game that it was, didn't really detract from it overall, because the game isn't a combat type game. Now, granted, they still put in boss fights, and the boss fights were the hardest part of the game. The most difficult one for me was, of course, the boss fight where you had to escort the well, Roderick was your acting as your moving cover, and you had to kill all the guards who were coming at you. That was the most difficult one for me, simply because of the fact that it was a lot of bad guys and whatnot. Now, Lord Nicholas was, well, he wasn't the easiest boss fight. The first boss fight you ever encounter was the easiest one, but Lord Nicholas, considering I fought him twice, it should have been the easiest, but I did futz up a lot. My badness. Um, and of course, I'd say out of all of it, with the exception of, like, if you cut out all the boss fights and just include the singular boss in a fight, then there was only three real bosses in this game, and as because it's a stealth based type of game, it makes sense that you wouldn't encounter a lot of head on combat, which is good. I really find that it's difficult for me to pick out anything particular that I didn't like about this game, which is funny for me because I can always find something I didn't like. I'd say probably the only things that I can think of that I felt could have been better were like things I mentioned in the game. Like I kind of wish that there had been more expanding upon what happened in the interim. What happened? How did the kids get along? How did they learn to become best friends, as it were? And but at the same time, again, that's not really what the type of game is. Plus, they didn't really, they weren't able to for time, and of course, progress the story along. They kind of had to cut that sort of stuff to a jump in time, 1 month later, 3 weeks later, that sort of thing. And I understand. I think like that part of the story might have been better as a book or maybe a movie. But even in a movie, they'd have had to move the story along. But a book has a lot more liberty in that sort of section. I'd say that's probably the only thing I didn't like. But I mean, even still, it's like I feel like they could have expanded on. There were some bits in the controls that I didn't like. Um, Namely um, the sling part. You hold down one button, and then you charge it up with the second button, and then you release it, and occasionally it would not throw, right? And you see that actually a couple of times when I died. I'd hold it down, I'd charge it up, and it'd give me the yellow diamond, and then I'd release the button, and she'd just go back to holding the sling. And I'm like, no, why? You were supposed to throw, and then I have a sword in my stomach. In a lot of ways, I think that the game was a little too forgiving, though. Like, walking through in certain parts, you get your character stumbles through the rats, and it's like, oh, well, I'm dead. No, I guess I'm not, because I made it through. And there was even one part when I was playing as Hugo, I was just like charged right through the rats, and because there was enough space for me to get through, and in some ways, I feel like the rats especially were a little too forgiving. The guards maybe not, really. The guards maybe not, because they see you, they catch you, they kill you. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But even in some cases like that, you were running significantly faster than the guards themselves, like especially the heavy armored ones, which, yeah, to a degree makes sense, but at the same time, it just felt silly. I'm charging around the courtyard, running in circles around them, and I'm like, huh, these guys ain't going to be able to catch me. I'm too fast. um, so let's talk about the story, though. We've done we've done the sandwich now. This will be the bottom slice of the bread here. I absolutely loved the story and the writing and how it was told, because it was phenomenal. And I don't say that very often. I will say that it's good. Oh, it's spectacular. It's one of the good stories. I like it. But this story was phenomenal. It was succinct, didn't add too much fluff to bore you, and I know, contradicting myself a little bit, having said I wanted to know how the kids got to learn how to be, but at the same time, it was just as long as it needed to be. They didn't pad it out with like, oh, we're traveling to a new area or anything like that. Just like you are doing exactly what needs to be done, where you need to do it, right? And of course, there was the twist with the mom still being alive, which was great, and that was it was nice. But then there was the heartache of losing characters. The Roderick one especially hurt. Like I liked Arthur and all, but it was a lot more. He didn't really so much sacrifice himself the way Roderick did. I mean, don't get me wrong, he did die in a useless way, but that's kind of how it usually happens, isn't it? You die, it's useless, sucks. He did give me some time, but for the most part, Arthur wasn't. He wasn't the sacrifice. He just kind of got caught unawares, which sucked. Right into the freaking Lord Nicholas fight. I would have loved to be able to slap some acid in that guy's face. But then Roderick, pushing that cart, and then just to see him get hit, and it's like, oh my god, why would you do that? Of course, I led into that with a joke in my video, so try to lessen the blow a little bit. But at the same time, once I got past that part, it's just like, oh, Roderick, my dude. And I gotta love the way that they portrayed the death too, with the way they showed him, collapsing against the fence and everything, and you see the way his face just kind of moves up with the bars, and it's like his hand just goes all limp and everything. It's like, oh my god, they did excellent with that, and oh my god. I do like the way the ending happened, like not the ultimate end, but the end of Vitalis. I loved how it just kind of felt like something went wrong, the way Hugo was staring at him as he died. It's like, uh-oh, did Hugo get in trouble? Was he abusing his powers a bit too much? Because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, as it were, and that sort of thing makes me nervous. But I think given the type of story it is with Melly, or no, sorry, not Melly, with Amicia, and of course Mom now, Beatrice, they can help to teach Hugo right from wrong, and that's going to be important as he grows up. I don't know how much like power he's going to have anymore now that the rats are gone, or if the rats are still there, just not out and about, as it were. That does actually bring me back to one thing that I didn't like about the game, was that they played it up in the beginning of the game, the first person you kill, and it actually, I felt the weight of it. Some games can try to make you feel guilty for choices the game makes you make, but at the same time, it's like the way they did it with this one was just spectacular. Because, like, take The Last of Us, right? Where your character kills somebody, and the game tries to make you feel bad for it. Never mind the fact that the Last of Us is a game about killing people, and they try to make you feel bad for it by showing you the repercussions further down the line, right? This game, like The Last of Us, just moves you along, keeps going. And this game, you're playing a child, and she does something that she instantly regrets, because this is the first person she's ever killed, and she swings that sling and then whap, and it's like you're not really thinking about it in the moment. You're like, I got to save my brother, and even you as a player, you're not really thinking about it. You're just like, I have to save Hugo. So you just ready up the sling, and then you flip, and you boom, got him, and then, oh wait, I just killed someone. And that's Amicia's immediate reaction, was like, oh my god, I didn't want to kill him. And you're like, oh my god, what have I done? And as a player, depending on the types of games you play, you will go through cannon fodder like it's nothing. Like you got the frontline soldiers out there, you just blapping them away like in Call of Duty and whatnot, just blap 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 blap, no thought, no thought. These guys are basically just cordwood in the background, and then because of the pacing of this game, you hit the guy in the head and just like, oh my god, it really sinks in. Like, what did I do? And they didn't take the choice away from you either. They didn't like make it in a cutscene like, oh, here's Hugo getting attacked and Amicia readies up her sling and flick. No, they show you Hugo getting attacked and you're like, oh my god, I've got to save him. So you ready up the sling, you whip it back and you throw the rock. Then you're the one responsible for making that choice. Now, granted, if you leave it alone, Hugo probably dies and game over and you have to repeat it. So technically it's not a choice per se, but you have that power in your hands. So this game did an excellent job of portraying that. An excellent job of portraying Amicia's reaction afterwards and how this is not what she wants from her life. You know, she doesn't want to be a murderer. But the thing I didn't like about it was that it didn't really have an overall effect on the game. I feel like it would have been great, and maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe it did have an effect at one point, but the overall end of the story is the overall end of the story. It's always the same, from what I understand. But the penance chapter might actually be affected by that, because she was shouting at him, like saying, I killed you because I had to, and I would do it again, and you're like, oh. Maybe there would have been more arms reaching out and grabbing at you if you were more bloodthirsty and less if you weren't. And I'm like, oh, that's neat. Now, of course, I haven't tested this because I've only played it once. But I would very much like to try to play through it and be completely stealthy, because I think that could add a little bit, another layer to the game. Be less murderous and be more, opportunistic, as it were. Now, I am the type of person who doesn't care what type of characters I play as. I will play man, woman, any color. I don't care. I enjoy the characters. And to me, it's always a matter of, is the character good? Maybe not good as in aligned good, but well portrayed, as it were. And playing through A Plague Tale, while they didn't have a whole lot of time to go into character development, nothing of it felt particularly forced, So it's like Amicia is given she's hanging out with her dad in the beginning of the story, and you can tell that she loves her family just by this small interaction. And when she goes up to meet with her mother, and then all the badness ensues, and she sees dad die, mom says, go get Hugo. And to her, this little boy is nothing. She's never met him before, or I imagine she's probably met him, but not like at any significant value, as it were. So it's like, for her, this kid's a stranger, but she also knows he's family. So it's like, okay, fine, mom told me to do this, we're going to do this. And you can see in their initial interactions is that she's really not here for this. She's doing what she was told, but to the point where she's just doing what she has to do, as it were, rather than doing it because she wants to. But then throughout the story, you watch as their characters grow, and you watch them become siblings, with the love shared between them, and you see the hugs and the squishiness, and it's great, and I love it. And it all feels like a natural growth. Granted, it is aided by the fact that they are siblings, and, they're going to be friends eventually. But there is the growing pains, as it were. Additionally, the other characters all seem very unique, as it were. Lucas, the nerd, as it were, the alchemist, the apprentice alchemist. Melly, a little hot-headed. She's a thief, which is, not exactly the best thing to be when you're trying to be sneaky. You can't be hot-headed because you can't get upset. But it doesn't really show through. Like, she knows to get done what she needs to get done. And then when Arthur dies, that's her breaking point. She gets pissed, which is understandable, because beyond everything else, Arthur has been the one point of solidarity in her whole life. Arthur was, as much as I'd hate to say it, the weakest of the characters. Like, he didn't have much screen time, and he was there briefly and then dead. And but yeah, you got to use his abilities every now and again, which was great. You know, the distraction, the dropping the boulders on Doofus' face, Lord Nicholas. And then, of course, there was Roderick. Probably not. He had about maybe as much screen time as Arthur did, but to a different degree, he became quickly a good character because maybe it was because you had to spend the whole map walking around with him and sending him after things, but they really they developed his character very well in a very short time, which, considering the game is significantly short, is pretty short. Makes sense. You know, they don't have a whole lot of time to go into everybody, but in a lot of ways, this game shows you that actions speak louder than words. You know, you could say, "Hey, I'm a thief and I do things," but if you actually, go through the thing and do what you're supposed to do, then you get to the end of the game and you're like, "Ah, yeah, that was a thief. They did things," or, "Oh, Roderick's a tough guy. He did a great job there." Well, as little as I do this whole rating system, I am definitely going to say 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. Will play again. In fact, I have an idea for a silly video where I'm going to try to do the intro part in French, mostly because I told somebody I would, and so I want to do the intro part in French and see how well that works out. But we'll see. But yeah, that is my review for my final thoughts for A Plague Tale Innocence. Don't sleep on this game. Play it. Get it. Enjoy it. If you're terrible at stealth games, don't worry. This game is a little more forgiving than all that, and the mechanics to it are pretty nice, and all that fun stuff. But yeah, don't pass on this game, man. It is great. But apart from all that, have you played this game? And if you have, what were your thoughts? I would definitely like to hear those in the comments down below. But apart from all that, that's going to be it for me for today. Thank you all so much for joining me for this community show. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And if you did, please don't poke that like button for me. If you want to see more from me, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And of course, as always, you are more than welcome to leave a comment in the comment section down below. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can. When I can, if I can. You know, all that jazz, and tune in next time. One topic, another topic, at another time. And until then,